Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Hello, good people, and welcome to another hard-hitting edition of Tackling a New Kingdom. I am your host, Tank Johnson, and today we have an absolute icon. We have one of the most decorated athletes in American history, 2000 to 2016 women's national soccer team, two-time gold medal winner. This woman's accolades are a show of their own. Hope in the house. Hope, how you doing?
Oh man, I'm doing good, Tank. It's good to be on your show. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's great to have you on the show. And she is also the host of Hope Solo Speaks on Sirius XM or wherever you get your podcasts. So please go check that out. It is a great listen. And on our show, Hope, we like to tackle three important buckets: something current, something real, and finally something controversial, and get you out the door on something light. So today, in tackling something current, it seems to be a reoccurring theme, but I have to know, with such a decorated athlete from the Pac-10 era, can you tell me, like, what's your state of the Pac-10, 12, whatever it is right now? And also, so that's the first part, what's your state of the Pac? And then how does that affect college soccer in your position? Because I see you guys play all over the country, but as it pertains to conferences, how does this new Pac-12 shakeup affect you guys?
Yeah, man, the conference expansion and this whole realignment it's a very foreign concept for me to understand, because we grew up in the Pac-10 and the Pac-12. We're West Coast schools, and I understood the concept of recruiting collegiate athletes, but recruiting entire conferences to change conferences, it's this concept that maybe I'm a dinosaur, maybe I like things the way they used to be, maybe I like the history of our conference, conference of champions. That's how I see it, and it's being fractured, and it's not going to be as competitive without schools like UCLA and USC, and who knows what's going to happen with Arizona schools. It's going to be changed. I'm not very great at the nostalgia of change. I think going through change myself, I'm okay with going through change. We grow up, we change, we make improvements in ourselves. But I want to rely on the Pac-12 as something that's always there. I can tell my kids that is conference that your pops and I played in way back in the day, and it still is alive and successful. And I don't think we know if the Pac-12 is going to sustain. And that's really sad to me, man. That's really sad. And I would assume you feel somewhat similar, but I understand the business aspect to it, of course. The Pac-12, man, they better get themselves a huge network deal. Right. They need to do something different. I mean, the fact that it's hard to find the games half the time, they're not on ESPN, they're not on Fox, we're everybody else seems to have a leg up on us right now. And it's time to get in the fight, keep these good schools. Because I can't imagine having, San Diego State in our conference or a Boise State.
I know. It's mind blowing. And for our Olympic sports, okay, I understand that we play different schools from not necessarily in the Pac-12 or West Coast Conference, so we kind of intermingle anyway. I just don't see, in football, I guess it makes sense for us to play the schools in those conferences. What's the furthest school that you guys played when you were there that was non-conference?
We had a lot of great non-conference game and preseason games. We played Notre Dame at that time. They were one of the powerhouse soccer schools in the country, North Carolina as well. So that's as far across the coast as you can get. Right. But I think it's going to be strange, because one of my proudest moments, especially being a Husky, being a dog, is winning that Pac-10 championship. I still have the ring. That's my wedding ring. I still have the Pac-10 championship ring. And beating schools like Stanford and UCLA, they are some of the best soccer programs in the country. So if the soccer programs were to leave out of the Pac-12, it's a train. It's strange to me because, we're relying on the revenue making sport, football,
Mhm.
to allow teams like soccer, women's soccer, men's soccer, the non-revenue sports to now travel further distances. So we're talking about, air travel, hotel travel, a lot more travel. So it's going to cost a lot more money for the athletic program.
Yeah.
So until we're able to sustain that through a major, television contract, I don't, half the time we would do fundraising for ourselves, car washes for ourselves. Yes,
Right.
we got you know, a lot of support from the major sports at Washington, but we still had to run our camps and make money for preseason games and all that. So I don't know how it would affect the non-revenue making sports.
Well, I had Rick Neuheisel on the show a couple weeks ago, and he was talking about George Kliavkoff, the head of the Pac-12, and basically, what he was trying to say was that the Pac-12 network didn't get into as many homes as they thought they were going to get into, and where they were supposed to make $8 to $9 million each school, they ended up making less than $1 million. And so when you talk about a network TV deal, I just don't see one that really exists that is going to prop up the pack right now, because one of the questions that I had for you was like, do you have any solutions to this? And I'm finding it hard to even come up with like logical ways to keep the Pac-12 going. It's over, I think.
Yeah, I'm afraid you're right. I feel like it's not a question. It's a question of when, at this point, not what if. And that's my fear as well. But
Yeah.
who knows? We come from a different generation, Tank. I believe, did you come into college in 1999 or
I came in
graduate
at 2000.
2000?
Yep.
So I graduated high school in 1999. So I guess my first soccer season was 2000. So are we the same year? I'm trying to figure that out.
Well, I graduated high school in the year 2000. So let's go there. So you
Okay.
graduated in
You
99.
are a year younger than me. I told
Yeah.
you that, but okay.
Yeah.
But anyways, what I was saying is we are old
Yeah.
school, I think is what I was getting at. And there's a lot of this new way of college sports that is hard to grasp, even the NIL, the name, image, and likeness. It changes the purity of college sports. And it's just not the same. And I want kids to have an opportunity to make money, definitely take care of their families, make money, be educated on how to save that income, even though you're a 17-year-old kid making a ton of money off of your name, image, and likeness. But it is changing, where kids are going to school. Kids are now following the dollar signs. And we both know, being true dogs, we bled the color purple, and we stood by our programs, and it was about winning. It wasn't about making money at that point in time in our lives.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm glad these kids get opportunities, but for me, it still steals a little bit of the purity of the collegiate game.
Oh my gosh, that is so true. It's so funny. It's like, the one thing that I don't want, is to feel like just the old, the old dogs, like, oh, it was like this back in our day. But I mean, like, I truly believe that. And to your point, I don't look down on these guys for having financial opportunities at all. I just know what the injection of that money potentially does to that young person, that young mind, and it just corrupts it. And unfortunately, we sound like, oh, you can't do that. But the truth of the matter is, we're gonna look at the stats, 10, 12 years from now, and unfortunately, they're gonna be very honest about what happened when you give these kids millions or hundreds of thousands of dollars way too soon.
Everybody
So
gets an opportunity right now,
yeah,
It's based on
it's
social media and being an influencer. So everybody has the opportunity to make money, and I get that. But looking back, I was professionalized at 16. I played for the national team at 16 years of age. So when I went to University of
wow.
Washington, I was still training on the national team. So I could have made a ton of money, with the name Hope Solo in Washington State, in a big city, playing for the US team. And when I came back to college, like, I had all the stress of trying to make the big team, trying to make the national team, the 1999 World Cup, the 2000 Olympics, And I'd come back to the university and I had great leadership in our soccer coaches, great camaraderie, playing with my college teammates, not trying to, cut anybody down while climbing to the top, which sometimes is the culture when you play higher up, which is the culture on the US team. So for me, playing college ball was just so pure and fun. And it really allowed me to just fall back on the love of the game, not worry about, the appearances and the autographs and the commercials. It was just, wow, this is why I play the damn game. And I feel bad for kids who don't get that.
Me too.
Because of NIL, of course.
Man, well, that's great. Well, that is tackling something current and super appreciative. And moving on to tackling something real. Being the most decorated woman in professional football, soccer, sports history, what's been the most rewarding part of the journey? And I say it because of this. Over the years, I've collected a ton of awards and memorabilia, but I had the privilege of visiting your trophy room in your old house. And while very impressive, I always wondered, like, which one of these brings the most memories to you? Which one gives you goosebumps? Can you tell me what's been the most rewarding part of your journey?
I'm going to give you two answers for this. I'm sorry I can't pick one, but
Oh, do your thing.
When I look at my trophies, I actually really love my bronze World Cup medal, and I love my golden gloves. Now, let me explain why. So the golden gloves it's indicative of the fact that I was the best in the world at my position. So I worked my butt off for God knows how many decades to get to the point where the world said, all right, this is the best goalkeeper in the world, that I can to this day say I was the best at something for my kids. Wow. And I want to be able to use that to teach our kids, like, I don't care what you do, but whatever you go out there and do, try to be the best at it. And I'm happy that even Jeremy and I can say that, because his dream was to be drafted in the first round, and he attained that goal and that dream. And so I find it most rewarding that we can tell our kids that, to kind of, give them a little boost or a kick in the butt when they need it as they grow up.
100%.
But losing to Japan in the 2011 World Cup final, I'm sorry, not my bronze medal. Bronze medal has a different story. I have a story for every medal. So my silver World Cup medal is the one that I think back to, because it's the first time. It was in 2011. We were playing in Germany, a very soccer educated, soccer specific country, beautiful host of the tournament. We just find out a couple days prior to our championship game, I believe it was, maybe it was before the semifinal, but we found out about the tsunami in Japan, the earthquake, and then the tsunami that displaced, hundreds of thousands of people. Many of the players from Japan, one was the captain that I played with, her name was Aya Miyama. I played with her in St. Louis, but many of the players lost family members, didn't know where any of their family members were, couldn't contact them back in Japan, thought about flying back home. I still get the chills telling this story. Wow. But they decided to stay in Germany to play in the final because they were their country's hope. Their whole country got behind them. They found TVs, floating down rivers. They found a way to get them working. They got crowds around in Japan with all this devastation, and they cheered their women's team on. And it was the first time that I had seen sport really rise above what sport usually is about winning and losing. They became the hope of their nation, the hope of their country. And they actually, I think, played better than what they were capable of, because they were playing with a different meaning. And it's the first time I witnessed that in sport in a World Cup final. And they were an incredible team to lose to, a team with respect and admiration. I remember the captain came up to me after the game and she said, Hope, I'm in tears, and she's just like, Hope, I feel so bad. I feel so bad. I'm celebrating. And I was like, winning a World Cup may only happen once in a lifetime. Please do me the honor and take in this moment and celebrate. Celebrate it. It was just one of the beautiful post-match moments that I've had with the opponent. that I'll never forget.
Wow.
And I took great pride in my silver medal.
Wow. No, that is amazing. And you know, it's funny because, you know, during my, you know, time of just playing college and sports and all that, I never was one that like collected, you know, even these little stuff up I have here from UW. I never was once to put them up and do that. But then once I left the game, I was like, oh shit, where's that medal? Where's that, you know, booklet that I was on the cover of that game day program? And so I've always wanted to ask that question to athletes, like what's, you know, I mean, freak, your trophy case was a whole entire room. And I always thought whoever bought that house was probably looking around like, wait a second, what the hell was in this room? All trophies? Like, I mean, that's such a awesome deal.
Yeah, that home in Kirkland on the hill overlooking Lake Washington, that was a special place for us. It's where, you know, Jeremy and I really came together and built our union. And the people that bought the home were actually soccer fans, and they asked for us to keep our UW posters up in the outside garage, which was our workout room. So
Wow.
the little girls got a Hope Solo picture or poster when they moved in.
No, that's awesome. Well, another question that I wanted to ask you is this. When at UW, when we look at our football culture, and so much of it, at least when I was there, was passed on from generation to generation. You know, the guys who were there before, you know, teach the guys who how to do it now. What's the culture like? And I want to talk specifically to college soccer. And is it like that in terms of like old values, rites of passage, and those things? Is it the same? How would you describe that?
Well, you're making me feel old again.
We're the same age. Let's just talk about it.
Yeah, no, I think I talk about this a lot. I do think that, like I said, we bled purple and gold. We would fight for our teammates. We would do whatever it took to win. And I'm speaking, you know, obviously because I know the stories from Jeremy and being a football player at Washington during that era. And then obviously being an athlete at Washington at the same time on the soccer team, and the culture of the other sports. I mean, it was a winning culture, and we had to tough it out. We always said, you know, the real dogs with a DAWG. I mean, that was our culture. We fought till the end to win.
Yes.
And, you know, I remember stories of players getting on the line and running 120s, doing fitness tests and having to pee, you know, but what do? You're not gonna be like, hey coach, excuse me, can I take a break during fitness tests and walk off the field and, you know, go to the bathroom? That shit would not happen when we played. And I remember this story where our captain literally was like, screw it, you know, I have to run these 120s. And she just let it go down her shin guards and kept on running and passed her fitness test. That stuff doesn't happen this day and age. And I'm very close friends with one of the assistant coaches on the women's team. And I'm close friends with a lot of different coaches who, you know, are coaching major clubs, are either scouts for the national team. So there's a lot of people that I do communicate this with. And nowadays you can say, hey, I'm having a hard day. Can I take a mental health day? Or I'm having a hard day. You know, I have to use the bathroom. I can't run the 120s. Do you mind if I step off the field?
Yeah, go ahead.
And I understand, you know, that we have to take care of the mental health of our younger generations and our younger athletes. But at the same time, there is something to be said for get your ass on the line, run your 120s, run your fitness, no giving up. I don't care if it's a hard day. Sometimes you just need to get through it and you'll feel better on the other end. And so I do think we've lost a little bit of that.
But just like anything, I don't mean to cut you off, but just like anything, Hope, I think that unfortunately, this young generation, like any generation, has learned how to take advantage of those mental health, that ability to get out of doing something that's demanding on you. And just like anything else, people are gonna find ways to take advantage of it, and it just blurs the water of, like the transfer portal, right? It's like, now if you go to the transfer portal, you've got to have something in there that was a, a redeeming reason of why you had to transfer. And if you put the mental health, it's signed, and you can play when you get over there. So I'm afraid that it's gonna be like the boy who cried wolf, once you get later on down the line with this just mental health thing and getting a day off. So I completely agree with you there.
And I think some of the most influential coaches that I've ever had and leaders that I've ever played for, or been surrounded by, have been the tough love ones who were really hard. I had so many players tell me at Washington that they were too scared to knock on the door there at Graves Annex, where our coach's office was, and have a meeting with the coach. And I'd be like, why, man? Why? She's tough, but she's awesome, and she wants the best for us. And so I loved that tough love that I got from my coaches. Those were the best coaches I've ever had. They weren't easy. They weren't likable necessarily. They didn't want to be liked by everyone. Those were the best coaches that I've ever. And this day and age, you have to blame it on the coach as well, because so many coaches want to be liked. They want to be loved. They want everyone to, I get buying into the game plan, but I think a true leader and a true coach should be okay with not being liked. And then what I was going to say is those players would turn around 5 years after college and say, oh my gosh, Leslie Gallimore was the best thing that ever happened to me. She was hard on me in college, but I don't know where I would be without her.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I had Randy Hart. He was a hellraiser and an ass kicker, and he would not allow you to leave with 1 ounce of potential. He used to tell me, I hate the word potential. I need you to bring it out. I want to see it. And he would not allow me to give up on myself. So kudos to all the old school coaches who got the best out of young men and women at all costs, but did it the right way. So that is tackling something real. And now we're going to get to tackling something controversial. I feel that hard conversations lead to better perspective. And this is something that you've been at the forefront of for many years. We all know that the equal pay conversation comes with tremendous nuance. Can you tell me a pathway for more equitable pay as it pertains to men and women's sports?
Yeah, I wish I could figure out that pathway, man. But what I will tell you, this is how far removed we are from it. So I've been very hands-on working with Congress to get this Equal Pay for Team USA Act to the Senate floor. It's very much a bipartisan bill. It's very well supported on both sides. Mm-hmm. And we're having a hard time getting it to the Senate floor right now. But in editing the bill, I should say, everybody wanted to edit the hell out of tiny words. So we're talking about the US Olympic and Paralympic Committee. So the USOPC was a part of supporting or not supporting this bill. So this bill states that we should have equal compensation for all Olympic amateur athletes. So we're just talking about equal compensation, support, travel, budget, equal compensation for men and women Olympic athletes. That's it. We're not talking about professional sports right now. We're not talking about US soccer and the NFL and the NBA and the WNBA. We're just talking about Olympic sports and really supporting our amateur athletes. And what the USOPC did was they took out the word equal, and so did a lot of the senators, took out the word equal, and they wanted equitable. So it's something that you can't really measure, because equitable should mean equal, but really it's in some gray ballpark area. Right. So that's what we're dealing with. We always want to keep it a little gray because nobody wants to commit to the word equal. We use equitable, and we might as well say in some close demeanor, whatever close is, because that can be debated.
It's
So
relative, right?
it is. But as for, the Equal Pay Act and Title VII, I'm very proud to say that I was the first ever athlete to sue their own employer for violation of the Equal Pay Act and Title VII. And my case is still the only case pending in court in the Northern District Court of California. It's the only one still pending. There was a class action about a year after mine. It was the class action of the US current members of the team. But a lot of that is going forward. So they're getting equal CBAs going forward. But you have to understand, in the CBA, we had fought for decades to get more players on contracts, to allow players to play overseas, to have a number of different freedoms, right? But you always want to get more players on contract, not less. But in this new CBA that a lot of people don't understand, yes, the men and women will get paid equally per friendly match that they play. There's no guarantee of the matches, and there's no, we went down in the guaranteed number of salaries. So it is a catch-22, but we as a society, we want to celebrate it, because I think so many people are tired of hearing, the equal pay. This has been a really high-profile class action suit. It's in all over the media. It has been settled. The court hasn't approved the official settlement. It's going to be approved soon, I think. But everybody wants to celebrate it when we're so far away from actually really getting to equal pay. And again, just for your listeners, the Equal Pay Act is only referring to, this law has been around since 1963, put into effect, signed by John F. Kennedy, and yet we're still fighting for it. And all it says is, if you have the same employer with the same obligations, not necessarily the same title, but same obligations and work duties, then you cannot discriminate based off of sex, right?
Right.
So that's all it says. And so we're not looking at, let's say, and I get this a lot by a lot of, honestly, I think it's just sexist people who say, well, you really think NBA players and the WNBA players should get paid the same? No, they're not the same employer. Like, those are two different employers. So there's a lot of nuances, like you said, that people don't really understand. But right now we are not following a 1963 federal law of equal pay all over the country in all sorts of businesses.
And I think that's where the confusion is because I hear the argument that, we'll just stick with the WNBA, that they don't generate as much revenue, right? And so therefore it would be hard to pay them the same as NBA. So do you kind of see the same argument for women's soccer and men's soccer, or no?
The difference is for the United States soccer team.
Okay.
It's one employer. US Soccer is the employer for the men, and they're the employee for the women. On any given year, we play roughly the same amount of games. We have the same obligations. We have to do media. We have to travel. We have to go to training camps. We have to do residency programs, same obligations. And this is a different variable that shouldn't matter, but the women actually do bring in more marketing dollars because of our win and loss record, because we win Olympics, because we win World Cups. So we actually do bring in more money to the game. But despite that, everything the same, then you have to be paid equally. And because it's one employer.
Yeah, and see, again, it's it's the nuances that people don't hear when they're fucking screaming. It's that they don't get. And for me, I am a fundamentalist, a traditionalist, in the sense of, like, if it makes sense, do it the way it makes sense. But as USA Soccer is the one governing body for both men and women, making the contracts more fair, that seems like it should be doable, and it should be low-hanging fruit, right?
It should be, especially because they want to be the, they could have been the first. Sweden went on to do it. Norway went on to do it. Australia, New Zealand. There's a number of nations who now are the first to pay their men and women soccer players equally. But it should have been the United States. We have the most money. We have a very successful women's program, and they want to be the leaders of equal pay, yet they're really continuing to be our enemies. And the last thing I'll say about the new CBA, which is something to be celebrated, but like I said, we shouldn't be celebrating less players on contracts and no guaranteed matches. But you have to realize, in this class action settlement, there are so many great players who are going to be left out of the settlement. And really, some of those players are the ones who went on and fought the initial fight with the EEOC. So that's tough. They've waited to file so long that there's a statute of limitations. So a lot of players won't be getting paid.
Well, that is tackling something controversial, and I appreciate you handling that head on. And we'll get you out of here on something light. We kind of talked about it within this conversation. Do you ever see yourself being a coach in any different level?
I will never be a head coach, period.
Sarah, can we get a reason?
Yeah, man, I love defense. I can read defenses. I love organizing the midfield and the defense, and I love teaching goalkeepers how to be the best. So I would love to be a defensive coach, but everything has to be right. It's been a hard 2.5 years with the pandemic, having twins. It's been tough with the restructuring of the soccer, from the fall to the spring, and the scheduling during the pandemic. So who knows what's out there, but yeah, I would love to help a program in qualifying. That's what I want to do. I want to help a Costa Rica or somebody beat the United States. Not that I don't bleed red, white, and blue also, but
Right.
I really want to help build CONCACAF in this region of the Americas.
Well, I just want to tell you that you came, you saw, and you tackled, and we are so unbelievably grateful to have you on Tackling a New Kingdom.
It means a lot to me, Tang.
Well,
You're a real dog, man, and it's nice to be on your show.
Oh, thank you. And again, if you want to catch Hope on Hope Solo Speaks on Sirius XM or wherever you watch your podcast. Thanks for being with me, Hope.
Thank you, Tank.
Thank you for watching Believe. You can find more great content at Believe.com. That's BLEAV.com. Do you believe?